You straight away, you press record.
Yeah, here we go. Mike, welcome.
Thank you, mate. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, Mike, it's good to get you on. I actually posted yesterday and I tagged you in that I've been doing a lot of swimming recently. And it feels great actually to get back into it. I think I've swam consecutively for like the last 10 days. And I thought it'd be great to get you on for a podcast because I know that just from following you on social media, obviously like through CrossFit, but a big kind of swimming background as well. I won't introduce you if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself just to listeners so they get a better idea of kind of who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so obviously my name's Mike Bourne. I was a former professional water polo player. So I used to play water polo for Great Britain and England for around about 10 years. And then within that 10 years, I played professionally in Australia, in the Australian National League. I played for Fremantle there. I played for PSV Eindhoven in Holland in the Dutch league, and then from there I went and played for Turia Valencia in the Spanish league. Then just missed out on the Olympic team. I'm still a bit bitter about that, but I won't go into much detail about that. But I kind of sort of semi-retired after the Olympics, and then got sort of called back out of retirement for the Commonwealth Games in 2014, which we ended up winning. So came away with a Commonwealth gold medal, and then that's when I decided, right, okay, I'm gonna sort of retire from international. And then I played a few more seasons for Manchester, like won the league in the UK, and I've had like a pretty decent career. Played all around Europe, around the world with the national team. So.
Mate, your Instagram bio doesn't do you justice. I didn't realise that you'd done all of that. That's amazing.
Yeah, I think it's only a small bit of blurb you can put on the Instagram bio. So
I'd be putting it all in there.
No, and then moved out here in 2015. So I've done five years here now, into my sixth. And then I only really started CrossFit probably towards the end of 2017. So around about 3 years, just over 3 years I've been in CrossFit. And like most people, I was terrible to start with, like your Olympic lifts and stuff. And I'm not by no means great now, but I've come a long way. My fitness has always been pretty decent because of the base that I had from all the swimming that we used to do, playing polo. And like I've been swimming now since I was 3, so nearly 30 years I've been swimming for. And yeah, so like from that, then I was just really lucky that I sort of got in with a really good group of people at CrossFit Alliance, and was sort of training with Phil Hesketh and Mia Hesketh, Street Horn and that down at Alliance. And then it wasn't, Phil came and asked me to help out doing some swim programming for his prepared programming. So that sort of sparked a real interest in me really getting back into the swimming side of things. Like originally I was just doing a lot more PT out here, and it sort of allowed me to then sort of catch onto a niche of, swimming and, going really back into swimming coaching and, sort of pursuing that. Swimming's always been a bit more of a passion for me than most things. So
I guess it's like you said there, like that niche came about, and for those people that don't know too much about CrossFit, but when there's a big competition here, that obviously the Dubai Fitness Championships that come, and not a massive part of CrossFit, but definitely one of the components of it is swimming events come up, and you see them come up in events, right? And I know that you've done a lot of work with the top athletes in the world who come to Dubai, and you get a chance to go and train them, right?
Yeah, that's where I've been really lucky. Like being training out of Alliance has allowed me to sort of meet some fantastic athletes, and like I say, working with the guys that I mentioned while they were based here was great. But then like you got all the big top names like Fraser and Sigma's daughter and David's daughter and all that all came over and obviously came to compete DCC, and because they come and train at Alliance whenever they come over, or that they use that as one of their main bases. It just allowed me to meet them and get to know them better, and was able to sort of like put swimming sessions together for them. And like I said, I've been really lucky that I've managed to sort of get them in the water and go through workouts and just give little tips here and there. Like by no means am I their coach, but it was just great to work with so many big names.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you've got the expertise, and because you've got that crossover into the CrossFit world as well, from your own experience, you know where they might need to save energy and just those little tips and tricks. Right, before we get into that though, I want to start a little bit before that. And obviously this is a podcast about, swimming in general. And I think there's kind of 2 points that we're going to get to. And one is perhaps for people that, and we're going to, obviously adults, I know a lot of children learn to swim when they're younger. We might talk about that, but adults who aren't necessarily swimming at the moment, either because they can't swim, they've never swam, or they just don't feel confident swimming, in as short a piece as you can, like, why should people be swimming?
I think this, especially for the sort of older generation, if they're sort of not, physically active, I think that swimming is sort of like a great stepping stone to then becoming more physically active. And if you're too scared to go to the gym, I'm a big believer that anyone should be going to the gym. Whether you're 60, you can still go to the gym, and I believe that you should still be squatting and keeping yourself strong. It's it's great for that health benefit and sort of keeping the body active. But in terms of swimming, it's just it's a great way to sort of ease yourself in. The reason I say that is because obviously with the water sort of supports, a lot of your body weight. So it takes a lot of impact off the joints. And at the same time, obviously allows you to sort of get a workout in sort of what I would say is a safer environment than, whacking a load of weight on a bar if you're not ready for it. So you sort of build up your sort of basic fitness, and sort of capacity for, even breathing at a heavier rate, just moving the body, getting those joints loose, getting those joints, moving and ready to sort of be active again. I think it's a great way just to sort of keep yourself fit and healthy. And at the same time, like 9 times out of 10, especially people here in Dubai, the sun's shining, so it's nice to get outside and be in the water and sort of feel like you're on holiday sometimes. Yeah,
that's a big one out here. And like I mentioned when I posted the other day, like I've got a pool literally just out of the window there. Like there's no excuses for me not to swim. Like if you're back in the UK, you would have to go to a pool where there's a little bit more barrier to get in there. Like you might have to, pay, you have to drive there to go and do it. But a lot of places in Dubai, the pool is there to be used. Most people pay for it in their rent anyway. So it's like a case of like, hey, you've got access to it, go and do it. But I like what you said about the, more about like the low impact stuff in terms of you could potentially swim every day, right? You could swim every day and not necessarily put too much strain on your body.
Yeah, and for someone that's like someone that's a beginner, you don't necessarily have to swim far. Like if you're like genuinely, if your fitness is very low, you could even get in the water and not even actually swim. You could just do some running on the spot, or so just some bouncing up and down the pool from one end to the other. Like because of that water supporting you, it just takes a lot of the weight away. So again, if someone's had a knee injury or they've had problems with their hips or something, it's just a great way for them to start, moving, getting active, and just sort of like getting those joints used to, moving around, unlike before.
Do you find that, I mean, obviously you do this as a job and you get people coming to you, whether it's, the top CrossFitters or people who have never swam before. Do you find that there's a lot of people who aren't swimming just because they can't swim or they don't have the confidence to swim?
Yeah, I think confidence is a big thing. I think as well, like you need to remember as when you're a kid, 9 times out of 10 you've got no fear. So you sort of like, you get in the water, you sort of, you're attracted by the splashing, you want to get in and see what it's about. So I know I was like that when I was a kid. Like I still remember my mum being pregnant on holiday and I'm running in diving at like 4 years old and she's stressing. I just loved it. But when you're an adult, if you don't know how to swim, like my nan, she can't swim, and she'll only go up to like her knees at the beach or something, or a paddling pool or something. Because as an adult, you understand what water's capable of. So if you obviously have an experience when you're younger where you sort of like you take your breath at the wrong time and you swallow a bit of water and start to choke, it's not a nice thing. But at the same time, it's not the end of the world. And that's why, like, for people that are learning to swim, I would always say that if you're going to learn to swim, you must, like, go to a pool first. Never try and go to the beach, because you never know how strong the current's going to be, or the tide, or if how deep it's going to get all of a sudden. So I always go to a pool and try and go to a pool where they've got at least half of the pool is a shallow end that you can stand up in, because then you've got that that safety barrier of knowing that at any point you can put your feet on the floor, and then you can sort of start to learn and sort of, like I say, take baby steps with swimming. And like I say, I've worked with people that can push off and not swim. I've worked with people that can push off and swim 3 meters, and then all of a sudden they're gasping, they're grabbing for the side, but because they forget that they can stand up. But at the same time, like, I mean, I remember when I was 19 and I was working for Manchester City Council. I used to work with Amputees, and I still remember like my first session with them, and as a coach being super nervous because I was training people that genuinely they'd lost their whole leg, or they've only got half an arm. And in my head, I'm sort of like, okay, I know that obviously there's a lot to do with swimming about balance and stuff. So, okay, I've got to work around that. And that didn't scare me. What scared me was being correcting what I was saying. So obviously I'm so used to coaching able-bodied people where they're, I can just say, right, kick your legs. And I'm sort of like, what if they've only got one leg? Do I say kick your leg? Do I say kick your legs? And it was so nervous for me. But like, I remember getting there to the pool, and they were like literally, it was one of the best jobs I've ever done, because it was so rewarding, and the people that you worked with were just they were so relaxed, and they weren't scared to be in the water. So my sort of opinion of it is like, bring it back around. I'm like, if the people that can get in the water and they've lost a limb, and I can teach them how to swim. I'm pretty confident that I can teach like most people to swim. And it is just a massive confidence thing. If you get over that first fear of water, or that, that first initial confidence of, putting your arm in the right place, or breathing at the right time, then swimming should be easy. Because
it's almost like getting someone to do a handstand when they're an adult. Like as a kid, you literally you don't even think about it. You just do it, and you might fall on your head, and you try again. Whereas an adult, getting someone to do a handstand, you've built up all of these fears in your head that you're not able to do it. And then as soon as you get it, it's just something that you do easily then.
Yeah. And you think, why was I worrying about that? Like it's the same with swimming, honestly. Like, and you've got to be able to relax when you're in the water. Like, and that's always one of my main tips. And it's so easy for me to say, you've got to relax in the water, because I'm so relaxed in water. I'm better in water than I am on land. Yeah. But the more you can relax, the easier swimming becomes. And like the only sort of like analogy that I can use for that is like, if you throw a rock into water, it's going straight to the bottom. Whereas obviously if you throw a feather onto the water, I know it's lighter than a rock, but it sort of displaces its weight and floats, because it's relaxed and it's light. And it's what I always say, like the more relaxed you can be, the easier swimming will be. So
it also doesn't help having muscle, right? Because you sink down. Like if I try and do it, because I actually coach, I'm a level 2 swimming teacher. I mean, I worked as a lifeguard for 5 years in a leisure centre, and I just took the route of going through and doing some of the badges. So I taught a lot of the kids swimming, and it's just as simple as doing like a star float when they're 4 or 5 years old. And it was very difficult for me to demonstrate a star float just purely from having, and you feel like an idiot. You're like, why can't I do a star float? And it's just because you got a little bit more muscle.
Yeah, that also depends on your limbs as well. Like for me, I've got much longer legs than I have torso, so it's a lot harder for my legs to, all the air is in my lungs. So it's a lot harder for my legs to float because they're much further away from where the air is. That's the way I explain it. But again, the more air you can get in, the easier you're gonna float. And that's, obviously one of the things with swimming is just being efficient with your breathing and stuff.
Let's move on from like the beginner then. And I actually had a question from someone, because I asked for some questions yesterday, and he asked about swimming for fitness. Well, these were 2 separate questions. One was, should I be swimming for fitness, or should I be swimming for active recovery? And I'm sure you can answer that one quite easily. And then the second one, which was kind of similar, was like, I think he said he's getting into the pool 3 or 4 times a week. He's really enjoying it. He wants to know, like, if he wants to improve his fitness, what sort of sets, intervals, just as like a general, should he be kind of aiming for?
Right. Okay. So in terms of should you swim for fitness or should you swim for recovery? I think that is completely dependent on what your goal is. and your time frame and how many times a week you can get in the water. So obviously, in terms of the guys that I used to work with, the CrossFitters, obviously not every single tournament has a swim, but they want to be efficient at swimming so that when one does come, they can be effective in the water. So what we would do was we would work swimming once or twice a week. Once would be maybe like just a technique and drill session, just to, again, improve their efficiency. So it's not necessarily any sprints or any actual WOD or workout, so that they can just focus on making sure that they're swimming effectively and efficiently in the water and saving as much energy as possible, so that in the future, if they are doing an event, they're just a lot more comfortable being able to swim distance with that same technique. So therefore, it's sort of was like a recovery session, because it's not all out. It's not max capacity. It's not sprints and stuff. But then you can go down the route of fitness, whereas fitness would be, I would say, if you're going to work swimming for fitness, you need to be doing at least sort of like 3-4 times a week, obviously, as well as your normal gym stuff as well. And to work fitness or swimming, you need to do more. So obviously, active recovery, you're going to do sort of probably once, maybe twice a week. And then when it comes to your actual swimming for fitness, I would always say you probably want to be working at around about 70%. So around that sort of like,
it's like conversational pace, but obviously not conversational while you.
Yeah, probably a little bit more. So like that sort of like like your aerobic threshold, as it were, and sort of shorter rests, but like long distance. So for example, I'll give you a set off the top of my head. Would be what I used to do would be something like 10 to 20 100-meter swims off around, going every 1 minute 30. So like the fastest 100-meter time I ever did was like 54.9. So, and that, I'm talking, this is when I was like 17, 18, it's a long time. And I was in a 25-meter pool with obviously turns and kicks, not a 50. So I was always, my butterfly underwater was always one that helped me out. And so because that was my time, I would then work off sort of go over 130, and then I'd be sort of coming in around about 1 minute 10 for each 100. So I'd get like 20 seconds rest. That makes sense. So you're working at around about 75%. So you're not obviously maxing out, and it's just like continual pace. And then you get used to doing that. Then you can sort of up the amount of hundreds that you do, and then bring down the time frame that you use. So I always remember one set we did when, I can't remember, it might have been Spain. We was playing in Spain. We did a lot of swimming in Spain when we were like training for the season. We would do probably 35 to 50k a week of just swimming. And that's without the swimming on top that you do with the gameplay and the tactical work. And I remember one set we did was something like 40 100s. The first 20 were off 130. Then the next 10 were off 120. Then the next 5 off 115. And then the last 5 off 110. But you had to hold the same time all the way through. So I think my time was anything under 105 that I had to hold. And that's because of my times, that's what my times were. And, it was like the first 20 is doable for me. So obviously I wouldn't say everyone needs to go off 130. Like what I would say is you would time your own 100 first, and then obviously work off a percentage of that. So if I said, if I said, right, you're going to do 10 100s, but I want you coming in on 70%, you'd obviously add that time to your max time, and that's sort of time that I want you coming in off, and then 20 seconds rest on top or something. Actually, so again, I've said it, but I do some online programming, and that's what my programming works off. So you put your timings in, and then the sets that I write, it gives you times to aim for. So it will take your time into account, and then add the time frame on top, and then say, right, you need to be swimming off these times. Yeah, so the longer you go through the set, then, and obviously as you do the first 20, it's doable. The next 10 obviously gets progressively harder because you're getting 10 seconds less rest. Then the next 5, you're getting another 5 seconds less. Then the last 5, and obviously you pretty much end up doing the sprints. So that's where your fitness really comes into it, because you've got that sort of aerobic fitness to start with, and then you push through to sort of like your threshold, and then you push through to like your anaerobic threshold at the end. So there's so many things you can do with swimming, so many different sets, distances, time frames, and that's just talking like from a freestyle point of view, from front crawl. You know, then obviously if you want to get better at swimming as a whole, and you want to become a swimmer, or you want to be able to do all the strokes, then you've got all the other technical drills and stuff that you would do for butterfly, backstroke, breaststroke as well. I tend to focus more so on freestyle, because a lot of the people that I work with are not trying to become Olympic swimmers, and either swimming because they want to learn to swim and become more efficient in the water, or they're swimming because they're going to be doing a competition within CrossFit, which CrossFit never usually states it's got to be butterfly. It's got to be, it's usually you swim the distance however you need to swim it. So there's so many things.
Yeah, it's interesting that as well, that concept of, just mainly coaching freestyle, like front crawl, because like I've probably had this at least 20 times over my career in the fitness industry. Someone who's super motivated, they can cycle, they can run. They're like, I want to do a triathlon. They're like, I'm like, how's your swimming? They're like, terrible, don't swim. And to be honest, most, like, I'm sure it's the same out here. A lot of tries that you do in the UK, you actually, the sprint tries, you actually do in a pool, like a 400-meter swim in a pool anyway. So it's not as daunting. I know out here, there's probably more sea swims and stuff as well. But it's amazing the amount of people that would actually do a triathlon, but they haven't got that first component of it.
Yeah. And it's a big component as well, because it sets you up for the rest of the rest of the event. If you're like a terrible swimmer and you're just going for it, and you can waste so much energy on swimming if you're not a good swimmer, and B, you're not an efficient swimmer. You don't necessarily have to be a great swimmer. You just need to be efficient in the water, knowing full well that you've got to cycle and you've got to run to come after a triathlon. You want your legs to be safe. You don't want to be swimming and absolutely blowing out and kicking your legs as hard as you can. So that's where sort of like learning to swim and being efficient and not having to kick as hard, because your pull is working efficiently. And as long as your legs are sort of like floating, then, you save that energy with the legs ready for the bike and the run.
And that comes in probably from just drills, right? Drilling it in.
Yeah. And drilling timing. So like the thing, the main thing for swimming is to be like an effective swimmer, you've got sort of like your body position and your technique. They sort of go hand in hand. And sort of like if one thing's off, then it throws the other thing off, and they've got to go together. You can have a nice arm position, but if and a good technique on your arms, but if your legs are sinking or your lead arm is in the wrong position, it can throw everything off. And obviously then it will throw off your timing for breathing as well. And that's, breathing's a whole different story when it comes to swimming. And that's one of the first things to try and work on with people. Is a lot of people, when they're breathing, they try to hold their breath, so they don't actually exhale in the water.
Yeah.
And don't realize how important exhaling is. Like, if you think of any other workout that you would do on a rower or going for a run, the whole time you're working, you're breathing in and you're breathing out. Yes, your heart rate is going to get higher and your breathing rate is going to change, but it's completely different when you're in the water, because you have to move to breathe. You can't just, face just can't be in and then all of a sudden you try and inhale. Yeah. So that's where your timing comes in and your exhale comes in. So I always, for me, I know as like kids, they teach you to breathe bilaterally, like, every 3 or every 5, so that you breathe both sides. So you're balanced, as it were. But I've always been one to breathe just to one side. I'm much more comfortable breathing to one side. I can't really give you the reason why, but that's just the way I am. And it wasn't until, like, obviously watching your idols and stuff. So I'll take Michael Phelps, for example, like greatest, swimmer of all time, most Olympic medals of any sport of all time. He only breathes to one side a lot, like the majority of the time. And I'm like, if it's good enough for him, then I'll take that and I'll run with it. So because I breathe to one side, I usually breathe every 4 or every 6. So I know that when I'm breathing every 4, as soon as I take my inhale and I'll put my face back in the water, I need to exhale within the next 4 strokes. So you would gradually do that. So obviously if you're sprinting like a 50-meter swim, then you're not going to breathe as much as you would swimming 1,000 meters, because you're trying to get the work done as fast as possible. So you're going to take one big breath before you dive in, and it's going to be an anaerobic piece where you just go for it and you breathe once or not at all. Whereas when you're swimming a longer distance, you want to keep that heart rate down as much as possible. And the best way to do that is to control your breathing. So if I'm exhaling within my 4 strokes, I'm exhaling so that when I turn on my 4th stroke, I'm ready just to take the air straight in. I don't have to gasp. I don't have to blow out anymore. And you just keep that efficient timing. And because you're keeping everything controlled, you then keep your heart rate down to a lower point than obviously if you try and hold your breath. And obviously, it takes a lot of pressure off the lungs because you're able to release the pressure as you're exhaling. And that's one of the main things that is one of the first go-tos that I sort of ask people when they start to swim. My first thing is get in the water, and I sort of film them and right, swim. Show me what you've got. Yeah. I'm not going to say anything to you. I'm not going to give you any tips. I just want to see what you've got. And then obviously the length, I film it, and that's the start point. Then I start asking a few questions. Did you blow out in the water? What are you doing with your hands? And I can see most of the stuff, but there's certain things like, exhale and, underwater that I can't see if I'm stood on the side. So there's a few things. Yeah,
that starts even just like blowing bubbles in the water, right? That starts with when kids first get into the water, blowing bubbles to get into the habit of letting out.
And that's it. People don't, I think it probably comes with, obviously I've worked with a lot of CrossFitters recently, and obviously there's some certain workouts where you do find yourself like sort of holding your breath sometimes, or holding your breath because you're bracing, because you're doing a squat, or holding because you're doing a number of reps and stuff, and you sort of get used to breathing in that that kind of workout environment, in that kind of setting, because obviously once you come into the water just changes everything. So you've got to be able to control everything so that you in order for you to breathe and obviously keep yourself out of that panic mode. And that's what a lot of people tend to do, is they get into a panic mode because their heart rate just skyrockets, and they think, why is my heart going? I'm not like swimming really hard. It's because of the breathing. And like I said, when I go back to being relaxed, I think I've mentioned this on a couple of podcasts before, but my sort of tips on being relaxed is like your hands, for example. So you'll find a lot of people, and obviously they teach you as kids to have your hands together, so that you can't let any water through. But obviously, as kids, you've only got small hands. So obviously, as you get older, obviously your hands grow, and the more you then obviously keep your fingers together, the more obviously everything tenses and tightens up and becomes a lot more robotic. So one of the first things I say is, right, when you're swimming, is relax your hands, have relaxed hands. So have small gaps between your fingers, just have a normal hand position, because your hand's big, so that as you're pulling through the water can't get through those gaps fast enough. So you then create yourself a bigger paddle, a bigger surface area, which means obviously you're pulling more water, which makes you more efficient. And then because you're relaxing your hands, when you obviously, as soon as you sort of like tighten up, you see your forearms start to tighten up, and then because your forearms tighten up, your biceps tighten up, and then it gets into the shoulders, and everything just becomes too robotic. So for me, it starts with the hands and the feet. If they're relaxed and sort of floppy, as it were, then the rest of the body helps. It helps the rest of the body to relax as well.
I'm actually really glad you said that, because when I've been swimming recently, I notice I swim with my fingers slightly open, and it's exactly right. I feel more relaxed, and then I go, hang on, like the old paddle. You don't want water going through, but like you said, if you have your fingers slightly spread, then you're making a big paddle anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So by no means is it have your hands wide. It's just normal, the way you would walk around and your hands relaxed. You never walk around like this. It's just the relaxed position, and it just, let's say, it creates a bigger surface area for you to pull that water past and propel you forward. And it's the same with the feet. Like, you can't afford for your feet to be too tense, because it goes up the legs, and then your legs become too sort of toy soldierish, and you're not then getting that whip. Like, your kick comes from your hip, so it's like you whip all the way through, and because it's nice and relaxed, it then catches the water. Whereas obviously if you tense up too much, you don't get that movement. You look at a dolphin, the way the dolphin whips its tail up and down. It's not rigid. It's smooth and fluid. And then that just, again, if your arms are relaxed, your legs are relaxed, then 9 times out of 10, most of your body's going to be relaxed in the water.
Yeah, mate. Let's just move on. I've got a couple more points for you. I guess leading on to, I guess swimming for me kind of comes into the realms of like gymnastics, in terms of if there's any parents listening that are thinking about, transferable skills or sports you can get your kids into at an early age. Like, I guess it's coming from like, because I've got into more of like a CrossFit style of things now, but gymnastics in terms of body awareness, like that stuff will stay with you for, the rest of your life. And swimming's another one, right? And what I really like about what you did is that, like I said, I worked at a leisure centre for 5 years, and the kids coming in swimming, like, don't get me wrong, it's early mornings for the parents as well. Like the parents put in a serious shift. But then obviously it's not always, there's not one kind of like domain of swimming. It's not just competitive swimming. Like, I like that you went into obviously water polo as well. And that's like, that's a serious sport in the pit. Like watching you guys play that, that's some serious like aggression going on. But then there's obviously other areas of it as well, like synchronized swimming and those types of stuff. But it's all based around that same methodology.
Yeah, like I said, I think I know for certain. Like, I've not got kids, but I know when I want kids, and when I do have kids, there's certain things now. Growing up myself and seeing the different thing, and that's what, again, coming back to CrossFit, I like the fact that CrossFit sort of like brings everything together. Like, you sort of need to be good at everything, but it highlights certain things that, as a kid, for me, I never did gymnastics. Gymnastics wasn't an offer for me. And whether it was just because of the area that I lived in, and there wasn't many gymnastic clubs around at that time 30 years ago for me to get into it, and also as well, like as a guy, as a boy, it wasn't always the first thing that lads want to do. Especially in the UK, you want to play football, and that's so I swam from such a young age. Like, I was competitive swimming since I was 6, and I was also competitive football. So I was playing football. I was at my local team, but I was also at Birmingham City Academy until I was like 12. And then I got let go from there, and I was gutted because I was like, I wanted to be a footballer at one point. And then, swimming, because I'd swam for so long, so I missed that team element. I missed, playing sport with my mates. So I just gave water polo a go one day, and in all honesty, I was just turning sort of 13. I was terrible to start. Could barely catch the ball because you got to start getting your balance. And it just clicked for me the one time over one summer, and then from there I sort of built myself up, and I think it was like 14, 15 I was in GB youth, then the GB juniors, and then I got my first senior cap when I was 18. So it was quite early to get my cap, and I just loved it. I loved the sport. I loved the sort of the physicality of it. I loved it. It was fast paced. You could still score some absolute screamers like you would see in football, posting in, and it was just like a great, because I was such a swimmer, it was just a great sort of like outlet for me to play something different. And like you say, you mentioned synchronized swimmers. Like, synchronized swimmers do not get the credit that they deserve. Like, synchro is ridiculously hard. Like, it is phenomenal what they can do, and the power that they generate from their legs to like propel themselves out the water. Because I know what it takes to be able to jump out the water and catch, or jump out the water and fake and shoot, and you've got to be up to sort of like your hips, your waist. But to be able to lift someone else out the water is phenomenal. And then you've got your diving element. So you've got diving. People then get involved in diving, and obviously that then incorporates the gymnastic side. And I know for me, if and when I have kids, I'll definitely want them to swim. And I won't push them to be competitive swimmers. I'll push them to swim, because I do believe that swimming is a life skill, and everyone should know how to swim, because you never know at what point you might just go to the beach on holiday, get caught in a rip, or fall into a pool, or fall into it's just a life skill to be able to sort of at least save yourself. And then when it comes to sort of things like gymnastics, I think it's so good for the body in terms of mobility and core strength and overall strength. Again, you'll see some of the things that gymnastics do, and you're just like, Jesus, crazy.
Just that body awareness is just so transferable into other things as well. But I agree with the swimming as well. And like I said, I watched a lot of swimming, and it's something that Listen, I never swam at a club or anything like that, but I was always a pretty good swimmer just from going and swimming myself. And I think you can get to a level where you are a competent swimmer. You can, you can swim well enough to save your life if you need to.
Yeah.
But part of me wishes that perhaps maybe if I joined like maybe a surf life-saving club, or, if joined a swimming club, because I've been in swimming events in the DCC, like 2013.
Yeah.
Oh man, I wish I was better at swimming now. And you never know, it'll come back round.
That's my mate. I wish I was good enough to qualify for DCC and then be able to do the swim event. That's like, because I know then I might be able to get an event win and make a bit of money just from the swim event alone, and then I can, I'm good now. You CrossFitters can go and win the rest of the events. But I do think swimming is just one of the things where, again, it just creates such. If you do, if you swim well, and you swim a lot and you train hard, the base that it creates for your overall sort of aerobic capacity, your endurance and muscular endurance is just, it's great. And that's the only reason that I'm relatively good at sort of certain metcons, because my baseline is so much higher than someone else that hasn't swam, because I've had those years of, mornings, evenings, afternoons, like swimming, and just, it is pure fitness, like pure fitness, and clocking up the mileage, and then obviously working off your own sort of percentages and times, and just getting better and quicker and better and quicker. And obviously that you have a start point, and then you go back to that start point and start again your new time. And there's so much to do for swimming. It's so good for fitness and so good for your health. I recommend it to anyone.
I always feel like swimming is one of those as well that, like, you don't even need to you don't need to tell people the benefits of it. Like, people already know, and they know they should be doing it. And I guess that's one of the things. Mike, I don't want to take any more of your time. Obviously you offer like online programming. Obviously you're in Dubai as well, coaching swimming as a PT as well. So where can people find you if they want to reach out to you?
Yeah, so like most people find me on my Instagram. So my Instagram handle is @Bourne Fit to Swim. 2 is with the number 2. If you just type in Bourne Fit, usually I'll pop up. Not many people are called Bourne around here, so it's quite.
I'll tag that in the show notes anyway.
And the link to my online programming is in my bio on my Instagram, and it's super, like, for what a lot of people charge for online programming. I feel it's super cheap. I think in the UAE, in dirhams, it probably works out around about 75 dirhams a month, and you get 4 sessions a week, which one's like a technique and drill. There's 2 sort of volume and distance to get the meters and get the sprints and stuff in, and then there's 1 sort of like CrossFit WOD where you're doing stuff on the pool side. So it might be 10 rounds of 100-meter swim, 10 push-ups, 10 air squats, 10 lunges, for example. Yeah. Just to then get used to swimming under fatigue if you want to take your sort of your CrossFit fitness to the next level. But like I say, 4 sessions a week, updated weekly, super cheap, like 75 dirham a month. And it's on the FitR website. So it's quite good for, it's not necessarily personalized. It's more so like a bit more generic in terms of what the swimming is. But because you're able to input your own results and input what you've done, it allows me to then converse back and forth. So we can still have a conversation. You can talk to me about how you think the workout went, and obviously I can give my feedback. There's videos on the different drills that are on there. So it's not just like, oh, you need to do a catch-up drill. No, what's catch-up? There's video with an explanation of what it is. So it's relatively easy to follow. And then there's also within the program, there's options. So I do like a games level, an intermediate, and a beginner. So it gives you the workout, and then at the end it gives you a breakdown of how many of each set and what sort of times to work off and stuff, so that you sort of, again, it makes it more relatable to you as a person. It's not just saying everyone's got to do this. It gives you options. So it's something
that's super useful, and it's just giving that template, right? That template, what people need, and a little bit of accountability as well is always good. Yeah,
definitely. Like I say, it's a bit more in terms of this. you know, people doing their online programming for like sort of CrossFit and stuff, it's a bit more one-dimensional for swimming, because it sort of just takes into account swimming as a whole, like swimming as one modality, not obviously all the different things that come with most online programming. So yeah, it's easy to follow, and that's the aim now is to build that up a lot more. Like I started it like the start of the year, February, and then good old Rona came round and decided to put that on hold for a bit. So.
Yeah. Oh, well, I'll tag it in the show notes anyway, and hopefully we get some people on board. But thanks again for coming on today, mate.
No problem, mate. Appreciate it.
And
really, thanks for having me.
It's been great to chat more about swimming. I'm actually going to go for a swim today as well, because I feel all motivated.
Good man. Good man.